All right, guys, welcome back to the next episode here as we're here for Canada, race 9. So, yeah, we're feeling pretty good after that last weekend or that last week race in Spain, and P8 finish on that with 4 points. And even though we're not quite where we wanted to be compared to Monaco, where am I looking? I don't know. We have another part on the way for the chassis, and we'll have the major front downforce and rear downforce for Austria, hopefully. Make sure those come in properly. We didn't have any issues with our heat unit, so we're going to be swapping that out during practice sessions. Hopefully they'll swap it out after practice and then right between practice and the qualifying, and then go from there. But yeah, once again, Joker and you, Logan Sargent, Nick DeVries are not doing so well as they haven't scored points. But I did manage to score some four more points for our team here in Williams as we're sitting in P7. So hoping to do a little bit better than some of the Haas guys. Try to get up there in P6 for the constructor standings. But without further ado, let's get right into the weekend for qualifying.
We're all ready for tomorrow's race, but before we begin, let's have a quick look at those who'll be fronting the grid. Hamilton, Verstappen and George Russell. With qualifying complete, all that remains now is the main event. We'll be live and uninterrupted for the Grand Prix tomorrow, so make sure you join us then.
All right, so a little unlucky there as we round up that first run with the spin, and then no gain on the new set of tires. Just kind of off of our line compared to what we had for the rest of the qualifying. So yeah, I don't know if the car is really coming together with those upgrades or not, because we were on the front row on the last episode, and now we're three rows back from the front. We're on the third row with Carlos Sainz, so right there in front of Fernando Alonso, man of the hour last episode with his announced retirement. But yeah, so it's a P6 start for us, and looking forward to it here in Canada. Pretty close to home since we have been in Miami, so let's get right to the main event.
Here in Montreal, Lights Out is quickly approaching on this artificial island originally built for the World Fair in 1967. Now it's used for a World's Fair of a different kind, ever since Formula One first arrived here. We're back in Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. With top speeds of around 210 miles per hour heading into the overtaking opportunity of turn 13, 2.7 miles of the circuit Gilles Villeneuve are some of the quickest on the Formula One calendar. There are 14 corners in total, with 60% of the lap taken at full throttle, and average speeds clock in at about 130 miles per hour. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Leclerc, Sainz, Johnson, Fernando Alonso, Perez, Norris, Joe, Oscar Piastri, Bottas, Hulkenberg, Stroll, Ocon, Gasly, Magnussen, De Vries, Sargent, and Yuki Tsunoda. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. And with me today, of course, is Natalie Pinkham. Let's talk about Johnson. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within the team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do. And that has definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
After the points finished last race, let's aim to keep that momentum going.
All right, so a pretty good start for us here. I had to cut the recording because my headset was muted, like on my actual headset, not on my OBS. But yeah, so we're here, a P6 start, and feeling pretty good about our setup going into this. And we don't really have much of a personalized adjustment, but there is one for a little bit less tire wear, so I guess those milliseconds somewhat count. We're going to drop our fuel load just a little bit and get right to the race, so enjoy.
Superb parking there, mate. Let's make sure we get the edge on the surrounding drivers as the lights go out.
All right, so our lights are starting to go out, and we're feeling pretty confident on these medium compound tires off of the start here, as we're off to a pretty good start. Charles Leclerc pretty much shunting his start as we're side by side with Carlos Sainz, and like last race, we're taking it easy into turn one. Let off the brakes a little bit early, try not to come in contact with anybody here, as we're sitting in P4 now, behind George Russell, almost coming in contact with him as we go a little bit wide, losing that position against Sainz as Leclerc's all the way back to P10 already, as we're coming through Sector 2 here, and we're going to be seeing a lot of this Sector 2, and losing traction on these mediums already. I put a little bit too much power down off the start, as we're about half a second behind Sainz at this point, with Alonso closing in behind us. A little bit of oversteer there, I believe, with the back end coming out, as Alonso is closing in on us here on the back end of Sector 3, coming around the hairpin. And we're going to be seeing a lot of wheel spin on the hairpin, as well as we have great momentum on these medium tires coming up against Carlos Sainz. So we're on the outside line, and trying to use as much ERS as possible as we hit the brakes late and take position against, or hold position against Carlos Sainz at this point. And still sitting up in P4 as Alonso takes position against Carlos Sainz as we're moving on to lap 2. But now moving on to lap 5, where we actually get some more action coming around here in Sector 2. And Alonso is getting pretty close here, as Sainz is pretty close to him as well. He did make a position against Sainz, as we're coming out to the hairpin, and we end up going about a little bit wide, back end sliding out there a little bit, and Alonso coming out on his line as best as possible, trying not to hit him. As he takes a position from us here, as we're now currently in P5. We do not have the momentum like he does out of the hairpin, but we're going to be still sitting pretty strong here on these medium tires. And at this point, the start of Sector 1 on this new lap, about every lap or so here, once we get into the 10, 11, 12s, we're going to, you saw it there on the transition, as we lose position against Carlos Sainz. We're getting a lot of wheel spin, a lot more wheel spin that we wanted here in Sector 1 and the start of Sector 2. But you can see Piastri trying to make a move on Sainz there, and the other McLaren of Norris trying to make a move as well, as we end up going wide again. So we're going to be side by side with Piastri as Sainz is there, 3 wide coming out of the hairpin in Sector 3 here, and we end up holding that position. But you can see in the mirror how the a McLaren tries to catch up to us, as the Ferrari actually makes a double overtake and makes a move, and a little bit of wheel spin as we end up braking a little bit later than I wanted to, almost coming in contact with the wall, but we do hit the grass there, as Carlos Sainz does take that position back from us, pushing us back to P6 now at this point, lap 8 of 25, and the 2 McLarens close behind us, as these mediums are really starting to feel it. And later on here in lap 8, you can see the wheel spin again as Piastri, the time frame is closing in on us from Piastri, and Norris is close behind him. But we do end up going a little bit wide again on this hairpin. We're not hitting our braking point, and we're losing a lot of momentum from that. And Piastri is actually on the soft compound tires, so we're actually fighting for position. I do have the momentum out of the hairpin, but he had DRS. And he has the soft compound tires, so he holds that position against us as we're rounding out the end of lap 8. And we're left to fend off against Lando Norris, who's trying to take a position from us as well. But lap 13 now, we actually hit a decent line on the hairpin, and we're back up to P5 because people were making their pit stops. So Piastri and Norris both made their pit stops, as we have Sergio Perez behind us. And at this point, I'm coming in. And I don't know if Perez was trying to fight me for a position or coming in behind us, but he ends up coming in behind us in the pits. But at this point, we do have some front wing damage from that hairpin, and coming back onto the track in contact with some people, as we see the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz ahead of us. As we get our tires swapped over to the hard compound, there's the Red Bull of Sergio Perez, and then Lando Norris passes us as well. And we get stuck behind Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, all the way back to P17. And Sonoda and Sargent are passing us on the main track, as myself and Ocon are coming back on track. And we're basically at the back of the pack. And I'm next to my teammate, Logan Sargent, on the medium tires. He still has yet to pit, I believe, on those mediums. So he ran the same compound that I am. So he's going to be swapping over to a hard compound, probably, as Nick DeVries is stuck behind us. So we have a lot of time to make up, but we have to make a clean move on our teammate of Logan Sargent here, as we're on lap 14, and later on the end of lap 14 is when we make that move. Slightly miss our braking point, cut back on the inside, and a lot of us are going to have DRS. So I believe the Alpine, both Williams and De Vries, are all going to have DRS here on this last back straight, as we do make a position on the outside of Sargent. He has to kind of give up, and we're trying not to ram back into him as we pass the wall of champions. And we're sitting up in P18 here to start lap 15. You can see De Vries trying to make a move on Sargent, but Lance Stroll is coming out of the pits. Lance Stroll and Magnussen came out of the pits here. Magnussen back in P20, as we were side by side momentarily with Lance Stroll, and we held a position against him. So we're trying to hold that position against Stroll here as we try to catch up to the rest of the crowd and make some moves, as Esteban Ocon was a little bit of a nuisance as we came out of the pits for our stop. You could still see some of that wheel spin coming off our car, as we're only a few laps in on these hard compound tires. There's some damage from Lance Stroll. He's trying to make an outside line move before the hairpin, as we stop on the inside line trying to defend that line. But yeah, so Stroll finally makes that move against us on the end of lap 15, and you can see De Vries almost trying to make a move on us as well. So Stroll takes that position back from us, and we have to kind of fight with him back again for it. But lap 20, we almost miss our breaking point. Stroll ends up making a position against Esteban Ocon, and you can see how much the weather has changed. The rain is coming in here within the last few laps of the race. We have DRS and we have the momentum, so we make that position against Ocon, and we have to try to make that position against Stroll as well as he's coming through the hairpin. A lot better exit, but not as much momentum as we wanted. But you can see how foggy it is on lap 21 here, as we're now catching up to Stroll and Hülkenberg, as Tsunoda, I believe Tsunoda and Stroll were caught up, and two of them were side by side, and then one of them had to fall back and was side by side with Hülkenberg. So we make an easy position on Stroll. Next up, we have Hülkenberg on the soft compound tires and one on the hards. We have the momentum against the Haas, but he is holding that inside line. So we try to hold it as best as possible, side by side, right past the wall of champions, and we're still trying to fight for position against Yuki Tsunoda, which we do end up making that position against him in the rain as it starts falling within these last 3 laps. So we're going to be finishing this race in P12 here in Canada, which was a very good eventful race.
And that's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Fermé.
They take the checkered flag then here in Canada in what has been another fabulous Grand Prix. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I feel consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
Well, Mercedes are on top form once again after an excellent race weekend. It's great to see them up on that podium once again. So let's review the driver's standings. That's a positive result for George Russell, who further solidifies his position at the top of the standings. So then, Natalie Pinkham, who would you rank as your driver of the day?
Well, for me, it's got to be Lewis Hamilton. The multiple world champion may be the obvious choice at this point, but he's certainly a driver deserving of his great reputation.
Let's move on to the constructors. Mercedes move to the top of the table. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
All right, so wrap up a pretty interesting Canadian Grand Prix. We started in P6 with the mediums to the hards, and it honestly, after the first 8 or so laps, I completely felt like there wasn't enough traction. I was watching my temperatures, and they were sitting above like maybe 210, 215 or so, and the temperature was going down throughout the race as we saw that there was rain at the last 4 laps. And we're basically trying to hang on there towards the end to be able to finish and not spin out. But yes, a race that I was not expecting, as we lose 6 positions during the race, and Logan Sargent only gaining 1 position, as Mercedes now takes the lead in the championship here. As you guys did see, and George Russell also taking the lead off of Max Verstappen by 12 points. Lewis Hamilton close behind Charles Leclerc with 4 points there. As I'm feeling pretty good. We did finish ahead of our rival rookies, Nick DeVries and Logan Sargent. Nick DeVries still sitting at P17, and Logan Sargent, our teammate, back in P18, with Carlos Sainz having that DNF, having to retire the car there in Sector 2. I believe, the end of Sector 1, start of Sector 2. And then our rival Pierre Gasly finishing ahead of us in P9. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here in the Canadian Grand Prix, and we will see you guys in the next episode.